Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, good evening, everyone. Tonight we'll be discussing or reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, which is entitled Creation. Chapter 3, Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and we'll be reading text 24. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Canto 1, Chapter 3, text Krishna is the source of all incarnations, text 24. So I'll just read the Sanskrit and then the English translation and then the commentary. So, Tata kalau samparvritte sammohaya suradvisham buddha nam nanjana sutta ki ketushu bhavishyati. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Then, in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful theist. Purport. Lord Buddha, a powerful incarnation of the personality of Godhead, appeared in the province of Gaya, Bihar, as the son of Anjana. And he had preached his own conception of nonviolence and deprecated even the animal sacrifices sanctioned in the Vedas. At the same time, when Lord Buddha appeared, the people in general were atheistic and preferred animal flesh to anything else. On the plea of Vedic sacrifice, every place was practically turned into a slaughterhouse, and animal killing was indulged in unrestrictedly. Lord Buddha preached nonviolence, taking pity on the poor animals. He preached that he did not believe in the tenets of the Vedas and stressed the adverse psychological effects incurred by animal killing. Less intelligent men of the age of Kali, who had no faith in God, followed his principle. And for the time being, they were trained in moral discipline and nonviolence, the preliminary steps for proceeding further on the path of God realization. He deluded the atheists because such atheists who followed his principles did not believe in God, but they kept their absolute faith in Lord Buddha, who himself was the incarnation of God. Thus the faithless people were made to believe in God in the form of Lord Buddha. That was the mercy of Lord Buddha. He made the faithless faithful to him. All right, so we'll just read one more paragraph. Killing of animals before the advent of Lord Buddha was the most prominent feature of the society. People claim that these were Vedic sacrifices. When the Vedas are not accepted through the authoritative disciplic succession, the casual readers of the Vedas are misled by the flowery language of that system of knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, a comment has been made on such foolish scholars, avipashchitaha. The foolish scholars of Vedic literature who do not care to receive the transcendental message through the transcendental realized sources of disciplic succession are sure to be bewildered. To them, the ritualistic ceremonies are considered to be all in all. They have no depth of knowledge. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the whole system of the Vedas is to lead one gradually to the path of the Supreme Lord. The whole theme of Vedic literature is to know the Supreme Lord, the individual soul, the cosmic situation, and the relationship between all these items. When the relation is known, the relative function begins, and as a result of such a function, the ultimate goal of life, or going back to Godhead, takes place in the easiest manner. Unfortunately, unauthorized scholars of the Vedas become captivated by the purificatory ceremonies only, and natural progress is thereby checked. Okay. So later on, I'll just Om Jnanativedandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Maditamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him. So this verse and purport is mentioning Lord Buddha, and how Lord Buddha was actually Krishna, right? Incarnation of Krishna. Later on in the purport, Srila Prabhupada brings up the point that Bhagavatam was composed just prior to the beginning of the age of Kali. So the age of Kali has been going about 5,000 years ago. And Lord Buddha appeared about 2,600 years ago. So in other words, there's the manifestation of the Bhagavatam in a long, distant past, and then fast forward and you have the appearance of Lord Buddha. But the Bhagavatam, this book, was mentioning Buddha before Buddha came. In other words, predicting Lord Buddha. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Buddha is foretold. Such is the authority of this clear scripture. There are many such prophecies, and they are being fulfilled, one after another. They will indicate the positive standing of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is without trace of mistake, illusion, cheating, and imperfection. So that's one amazing thing, that Srimad Bhagavatam is predicting Lord Buddha, right? And many other things. So within this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains how Lord Buddha appeared in the province of Gaya, Bihar, as the son of Anjana, and how he preached this particular conception of nonviolence, or ahimsa. Because at the particular time, there was all of these followers, or you could say so-called followers of the Vedas, who, reading the Vedas, it's mentioned that there's fire sacrifices and what they would do because they were so powerful that they would have an old cow enter into the fire, right? And then by mantras and all the cow would come out on the other side with a new body. So quite amazing. But instead of doing that, they just started sacrificing animals and just started eating them. And Srila Prabhupada makes a point that on the plea of Vedic sacrifice, every place is practically turned into a slaughterhouse, and animal killing was indulged in unrestrictedly. So in other words, they were misusing the Vedas to try to fulfill their own sense gratification. So, therefore, Lord Buddha came and he said, reject the Vedas, because all of you are attached to following the Vedas, and all of you, on the plea of the Vedas, you're sacrificing animals. It's becoming like a slaughterhouse. So just reject the Vedas and follow me, Lord Buddha was saying. And specifically, follow this principle of nonviolence. And that's what people did. A large percentage of people followed Lord Buddha and stopped this animal sacrifice. Now, of course, within all religious movements or all spiritual movements, things start off powerfully, right? Things start off very powerfully, generally. I mean, if it's a real authentic movement, things start off powerfully, usually with a charismatic leader. And unfortunately, due to the influence of time, due to the influence of all different types of people joining particular religions or spiritual movements, things become corrupted. Just like at one particular time, all of these people performing these sacrifices, it was actually an authentic process, but over time, it became degraded. So whether it's Christianity or whether it's whatever other tradition you want to pick, or the different traditions or paths coming out of India or anywhere in the world for that matter, the general tendency is that it just degrades over time. So our spiritual teacher, Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Charya of the Hare Krishna movement, he would meet with religious people regularly, leaders, and a lot of the times he would tell these leaders very upfront, in an upfront way, straightforwardly, he would say, why are you eating meat? Why are you eating meat? You're a religious person. You're a spiritual person. Why are you doing this? And he wouldn't just tell the followers. He would specifically go to the leaders. He would go to the big leaders, like Cardinal Danilou. He was happened to be a big Catholic leader in France at the time. It's on. You can look it up. Prabhupada's conversation with Cardinal Danilou. It's actually in the book, too. It's in a book, Science of Self-Realization, the book, which you could get here if you want in the gift shop. So in that particular conversation, Srila Prabhupada he just spoke very clearly to him, very straightforward. Why are you eating meat? And specifically, why are you letting your followers do that? That's not right. That's not good. And the man he wasn't understanding. I mean, from the conversation, you could see he just wasn't understanding. He was, it's okay, and he gives so many arguments why it was fine. And then Srila Prabhupada said, and then the man started to say, Cardinal Danilou said, can't we go to higher topics? Can't we go to higher topics? And Srila Prabhupada said, until you understand this, there's no question of going to higher topics. You have to understand this. So within all the religions practically of the world, some of them, at least some of them, what it seems like and what traditionally followers would do is, they just wouldn't. They wouldn't even touch that, meat. It's completely unacceptable. Any type of meat. Any type of animal, flesh. So Prabhupada would just clearly tell people that, and some people would get upset, some people would get angry, some people would, right? But some people would understand and appreciate. And he would say that we're not trying to turn Christians into Hindus or Muslims into or whatever. We're not trying to turn anybody to Hindus. But specifically when speaking to this Catholic man, he said that you should just follow your teachings, right? Lord Jesus Christ said, "Thou shalt not kill." And you should follow that. And you should chant the holy name of God in whatever particular name you want to chant. So whether it's whatever particular tradition, the tendency is to deteriorate or to degrade, which in some ways it's kind of difficult to understand that, because it's like if someone wants to just not follow and just like do whatever they want and just, whatever their senses please or whatever their mind pleases or according to their own philosophy, it just seems that they should just do that. Don't say that they're subscribing to a particular philosophy. Like, for example, if one wants to subscribe to Buddhism, okay, it's a free world. People could do whatever they want, but they shouldn't subscribe as a big leader of Buddhism. I mean, especially as a leader, a big leader of Buddhism, and then just openly say, yeah, I eat meat. Because how does that make any sense? Lord Buddha specifically came to preach against that, right? He came to preach against that. You can't do that, nonviolent. So better not, claim to be a leader, Buddhist leader or follower. And this is why a lot of atheistic people or a lot of agnostic people or so on, they just don't like religion, because whether it's this principle or that principle or how you treat people or so on, all of these kind of moral standards, which is kind of interesting, because when you talk about atheists, I mean, I guess anybody could have moral standards, atheists, agnostics, and everything, but sometimes, like at Balboa Park, there's these atheists who go out there, and what do they say? Government on there says something like, do whatever you want, there's no heaven or no hell, just, do whatever you want. So it's kind of like throwing moral principles out, but I guess everybody ultimately lives by some moral principles, even if they claim to be atheist or agnostic or whatever. But a lot of people, they're just disgusted sometimes with religious people or religious leaders, because they see that they're not following. Or somebody says, I'm a Hindu, right? They say I'm a Hindu, like a big, spiritual leader or something. They say I'm a Hindu, but they're condoning themselves, eating of meat, and they're saying all their followers could do. Now, of course, whoever's listening to this right now in this room, and whoever's listening online, whoever listens in the future, it may seem pointed, like a pointed talk or something, but it's just the philosophy. I mean, it's the philosophy that whether it's any real spiritual, authentic tradition will stand by this, nonviolent. You have to be nonviolent. So all of these arguments, I need my protein, I need this, I need that, it doesn't stand. I mean, like I went to Kaiser Permanente. It's a hospital in America, in San Diego. It's not an Indian hospital or something. I went to Kaiser Permanente, and I was telling them, yes, I'm a vegetarian. They said, oh, very good, very healthy. So it's accepted fact. So for people to try to, at least in some case, right? For people to try to say that they need it, it's invalid. It just doesn't make sense. There's so many. But aside, in other words, you get protein so many other ways. Now, if someone says, I like the taste, okay, that's another story. If they're maybe more honest and say, hey, I just like the taste. And I don't really care about those animals, right? They're lower beings, they're animals, they don't really have a developed consciousness. let's just get rid of them, and then, I like the taste. All right. That may be more honest. But we would encourage people, we would try to, encourage people to think about that. Like, what about those animals? Why do they have to die? Like when I was in Boise recently, Boise, Idaho. Never went there before, first time. We have a temple there. Anyways, I had a nice time, speaking with the devotees and this and that. But when there's a local river about 5 minutes from the Boise temple. So I walked down there. I walked down there a few times. So one of the times I saw a man, he had I guess he had these huge boots on, or it was some type of overalls, where you could enter the river or something. Anyways, he had those on. He was with his son, and he had his fishing, throwing out the fishing pole. What is it called? Line, yeah, fishing line. Throwing it out, and he was teaching his son how to do that. And I was thinking, okay, this man's fishing with his son. Now, of course, sometimes they say, oh, well, I fish. I catch the fish, and then I throw them back in the ocean or river, and so. But it's like, well, you're still hurting the fish. I mean, it hurts to get a, hook, So anyways, this man was doing that, and I was thinking to myself, would this man like if while he was fishing, somebody just, threw this invisible line, right in front of his face, and it was some, nice thing that he liked, and he just went to, grab it, and they just caught him, and pulled him up off, because it was a bridge actually. So, I mean, I wasn't thinking about doing that, but I was just thinking, what, because I have a big line and pull him up or something, but I don't think it's possible. He's not going to go for it, right? So, but how much would he like that? Nobody would like that. That you're walking down the street all of a sudden somebody just, gets a hook and kind of drags. It's actually quite gruesome, right? I don't like to think about it. So, but for some reason, people, I'll tell you two more things about this fishing. Srila Prabhupada was one time walking, and there was a man fishing, and he caught a big fish. And for whatever reason, he said, "Oh, I caught a big fish, Swamiji." He said, "You want some?" And I told Prabhupada that. He was just, he didn't know. And maybe the monk ate fish and whatever, but he said, "We got a big fish. You want some, Swami?" And then Prabhupada said, No. He said, "That's okay. You enjoy." And then he was walking with his disciples, and then he told his disciples, and he said, "And suffer." He didn't tell the man that, but he told it to the disciples, "And suffer." So in other words, there's karmic rules. It's not that, it's just it's not like a free playground. We just, have a good time and hurt a bunch of living entities, do whatever we want, and there's no consequences. There's consequences. Another fishing thing, one last one. I'm not going to make a whole class about fishing or something, but my mother was in Oregon by a local river there, Rogue River, very beautiful river. And what she does is she collects rocks, and then she'll paint on them. Paint Hare Krishna, and then she'll hide them places, and people find them. And, oh, Hare Krishna, right? She does that. It's a thing actually here in San Diego too. People paint and hide them different places. So, anyway, she was doing that, and then some man who was fishing, he told my mother, "Hey, what are you doing? You're defacing nature, by painting on the rock." And my mother, she's kind of a fiery person, so she's kind of said something to him, "Hey, get lost," or "Who do you think you are telling me that?" Type of thing. And she said, I don't know if she told him, "Well, what are you doing? Are you not defacing nature, by catching fish?" Anyways. So, so the Hare Krishna movement, it is one of the only movements that is stressing this point, actually, nonviolence, in our diet and also our activities. So yeah, it's an important movement, the Hare Krishna movement, because it's actually a very basic principle. Just like when Srila Prabhupada was talking to this Karna Danalu, all this talk about higher things, Prabhupada said, you have to understand this first. So it's a very basic principle. But although it's so basic, it's interesting, we're one of the only movements really stressing it. People have to be nonviolent. Now, whether what people do on their free time and what people do with their lives is another thing, but at least this institution, or ISKCON institution, it is stressing that. And for people to try to understand that and realize that is important. Even within, okay, Hare Krishna, thank you. All right, see you all later. Just like within India, there's a river flowing through, many rivers, but there's one river, the Ganges, right, flowing through India. And some people who live on the banks of the Ganges, they'll eat fish, and they'll say like, oh, this is they call it Ganga Fall, right? This is the fruit of the Ganga. Fall means fruit. There was one couple. Anyways, I said I wouldn't talk about fish anymore, so. You might find this amusing, but after this, I promise I won't talk about fishing. But there was one couple in India, very nice. I met them, very, very nice, and they had this kind of urge to, but anyways, they were attached to fish, really attached. So then my friend, who was kind of like their mentor, guiding them and encouraging them, one day these people, it's kind of sad actually, it is a little sad, but one day this couple, they actually prepared fish, and they were trying to offer it to the deities, Krishna. And then the mentor said, no, you can't do that. That's that's against the law. Krishna doesn't want that. So patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta priyachati. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that if one offers me with love and devotion a fruit, flower, right, I'll accept it. Fruit, flower, what else? Leaf, water, I'll accept it. So, and Prabhupada makes mention in that purport, Krishna has a diet, and all these other things aren't on his diet. So, also in terms of people being attached to fish, it's on the same point. It's not a different story. It's people being attached to fish. There was one man. He happened to be an Indian man, but he was at a restaurant in India where he couldn't get any fish, actually. So he was sitting with somebody else, a friend, and the man, said, I got to go to the bathroom real quick. So he went to the bathroom, the man who's attached to the fish, and then somehow or other he left his wallet out on the table, and there was a picture of a fish there, So then the man came back, and then that other man asked him, hey, why do you have a picture of a fish? It's kind of weird, to have a picture of a fish in your wallet. And the man said, oh, well, I'm really attached, to fish, eating fish. So sometimes if I don't have the opportunity, at a restaurant or something, I have this picture, I can look at it, Anyway, it's kind of strange. So you could see that all this attachment that develops, right? Now, of course, some people were born and brought up with it, eating certain things. But again, whether we're brought up with it or whether we were not brought up with it, it's very important to try to understand this point, that it's just no good. And as soon as somebody realizes it's not good, then they should endeavor to just give it up. Because I know some people, they actually struggle with it, to give it up. So Buddha, he came to specifically help this point. Nonviolent, be nonviolent, be nonviolent. But he brought people away from the Vedas. And then later, Shankaracharya came. And Shankaracharya said, which sometimes Shankaracharya's philosophy is said to be covered Buddhism. Shankaracharya came and said, okay, accept the Vedas, but accept my interpretation. And his interpretation was a similar conclusion as Lord Buddha, which wasn't exactly, but a similar conclusion. In that Lord Buddha, at least originally speaking, of course now there's so many forms of Buddhism with different goals and so on. But originally, the philosophy is that there's this idea of merging into the void, right? Within Buddhism, you merge into the void. In other words, like merging into nothingness. Whereas Shankaracharya is saying, you accept the Vedas, and the conclusion is not merging into the void, but it's merging into the Brahman effulgence. This is the absolute form of God. It means this light. In other words, you as the soul, or we as the soul, we become one with this Brahman. No more suffering, no more anxiety, no more frustration, just bliss, right? And Brahman, this light, we all become one. So people were attracted to that because they were attracted to this, Buddhism idea, merged into nothingness void. It's a similar idea. But the Vaishnavas, later on Ramanujacharya comes in South India, Madhvacharya, all these great acharyas, they come, appear in India, and they say, no, you don't merge into Brahman. That's not the goal. You retain your individual personality, always. So in other words, for Vaishnavas or for devotees, this idea of merging into Brahman is just completely unacceptable. Never accepted. Why? Because if we become one with God, that means there's no me, there's no God ultimately, and there's no process of devotional service. In other words, there's three things that a devotee, that makes up of a relationship, right? There's the jiva, the soul. There's the process or bhakti of love and affection or service, right? And then there's Krishna. So there's the jiva, there's bhakti, the act of devotion, and then there's Bhagavan, Krishna. So merging into the Brahman, you completely, that idea is gone. And the scriptures say that although someone may rise to the level of Brahman, arura krichena padam tata, it says that they may rise through severe austerities. It's possible. But it says they fall back down again into material consciousness. And why is that? Because as individual personalities, we're desirous of relationships. Everybody in this room, I know many of you in this room, and I know many of you have personal relationships, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, right? Friends, and so on. You're not just isolated, right? You have relationships. So people, they fall down from the Brahman effulgence or this Brahman realization back down into material consciousness. Why? Because they're desiring relationships. In other words, the void's not going to do. Brahman effulgence merging is not going to do. We're not going to be satisfied, ultimately. So therefore Ramanujacharya came, Madhvacharya came and said, have a personal relationship with Krishna. So that's that's what was brought up with them. And of course, people, it's been a long-standing debate and long-standing kind of whether to merge into Brahman, whether the supreme aspect of God is impersonal or personal. But the thing is, the Bhagavatam says, that it's actually both. Krishna, it's Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabdite. In other words, there's Krishna in everybody's heart, right? God in everybody's heart. Krishna is directing the wanderings of all of us. And then there's the Brahman effulgence, this impersonal effulgence of Krishna. And then there's Krishna. So there's these three aspects. And Lord Buddha, he comes just like Kalki comes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Matsya, Kurma, all these different incarnations of Krishna come to reestablish the principles of religion or spirituality. So in conclusion, we should, whatever we subscribe to, if we ascribe, yes, I'm a Krishna devotee, or yes, I'm a Hindu, or yes, I'm this, I'm that, right? We should try to understand that real, authentic spiritual knowledge propounds this idea of nonviolence. And if we want to subscribe to any particular path or spiritual process, we should also be nonviolent. And if you say, okay, great, well, I just won't subscribe. I'll just be violent and not subscribe. Well, I would say that better to be, whether you subscribe or not, better to be nonviolent. In other words, better to try to understand the importance of it, whether you want to claim to be a Hindu or a Christian or this or that. Better we try to understand the importance of nonviolence and just act that way. Don't act violently, act non-violently in everything we do, say, speak, think. And in this way, it actually becomes a better world, right? People actually wonder sometimes why there's so much chaos in the world. Well, it's very easy and simple. There's no surprise why there's so much chaos and dysfunction in the world, because it's a violent culture. You know, look at the movie industry, look at the music industry, look at the restaurant industry. It's all violence. Slaughterhouses, right? It's violent. So then we wonder, oh, why am I fighting with my wife? Why am I fighting with my husband? Why am I not getting along? Why are there wars in the world? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Right? It's just due to violence, actually. So if again, to conclude, if we want to, we should just try to understand the importance of it, nonviolence. And Krishna is, of course, Krishna is violent sometimes, right, with the asuras. But Krishna is actually the most supreme nonviolent, the most kind. So if we want our heart to melt and ecstatic spiritual transformations, we have to understand the basic principles of spiritual life and try to act accordingly. So anyways, that's all I'll say. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Of course, some people wondering why I'm giving this talk, but I have some reasons, but yes. Yeah, you could say into the
Buddha
mic.
was incarnation of Krishna, then why did and how the separation with Buddhism and Hinduism took place?
Okay, thank you. Good question. Just 1 second, sorry. Okay, here it is. So, Lord Buddha had to reject the authorities of the Vedas altogether. We're continuing the purport. This is simply technical, and it had not been so, and had it not been so, he would not have been so accepted as the incarnation of Godhead, nor would he have been worshipped in the transcendental songs of the poet Jayadev, who is a Vaishnavacharya. Lord Buddha preached the preliminary principles of the Vedas. So in other words, to get people back on track of the Vedas, people were completely off track. The followers of the Vedas completely went off track. So then Buddha appeared to get people back on track by spoon feeding them, you could say, baby feeding them, the principles of nonviolence. You know, you have to be nonviolent, with the idea of getting them back on course of the Vedas. So it continues here. Lord Buddha preached the preliminary principles of the Vedas in a manner suitable for the time being, and so also did Shankaracharya, to establish the authority of the Vedas. Therefore, both Lord Buddha and Acharya Shankar paved the path of theism. And Vaishnava Acharyas, especially Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, led the people on the path towards the realization of going back to Godhead. And then Prabhupada says, we are glad that people are taking interest in the non-violent movement of Lord Buddha. But will they take the matter very seriously and close the animal slaughterhouses altogether? If not, there's no meaning to the Himsa group. So yes, followers of the Vedas, they were doing these animal sacrifices, they were abusing it, killing animals, eating them. It became a big slaughterhouse mess. So Lord Buddha came, effulgent Lord Buddha, very powerful, Krishna himself. He said, reject the Vedas, follow me. And he preached the preliminary principles of the Vedas, nonviolence. So still some of the Vedic principles were there, specifically nonviolence. So he was preaching that, and he got them all on board. And they were worshiping him, so it's a bit of a trick, actually, because they're worshiping God, Lord Buddha. Not me, but God, Lord Buddha. So, but then later on, when they all got back on track with this nonviolent principle, then Shankaracharya appeared on the scene. And he said, okay, you're following this Buddhism and merging into the void. Don't do that. Follow me. Accept the Vedas. But try to merge into Brahman. So it's like kind of going back to this theistic idea. And then eventually Madhvacharya came, Ramanujacharya came and explained that Bhagavan or Krishna is ultimately personal. Right? So I hope that satisfies you. Doesn't? All right, well, I can't satisfy everybody. I tried that a few times and it doesn't work. But anyways, I tried, so... But he came to trick people into worshiping him because otherwise they wouldn't worship God. And he came to establish nonviolent principles because people weren't going to do that.
Buddha was also a God, incarnation. So what is the difference between not praying him?
What's the difference between praying to Buddha or Krishna?
To Buddha it's the same as the Krishna.
You could pray to Buddha if you want. It's all right. It's a free world. But the
incarnation, so it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends. What's your goal? Because they propounded different goals. If you worship Lord Buddha, generally the followers of Lord Buddha, they have the goal of merging into the void. So if that's your goal, you could worship Lord Buddha. But if your goal is to go to the spiritual world, the Krishna Loka, or if your goal is love for Krishna, then Krishna gives a particular process in the Bhagavad Gita. He gives a particular process of spiritualization where you could reach the goal of loving Krishna. Now, of course, within Buddhism nowadays, they have these different Buddhists that they say, you worship Buddha and you go to a planet where Lord Buddha is. So it's a little bit of a morphing of the original idea of Buddhism, but there is a difference in terms of goal. Like, for example, you worship Lakshmi Narayan and you're not going to go to Krishna, you're going to go to Lakshmi Narayan. It's a form of Krishna, but a different function. They say that Lakshmi Narayan is God in the office and Krishna is God at home, So how you want to relate to the different incarnations and so on is, that's up to us. So, all right, Anand Maharaj here? Yes. You have the... Prabhupada had a godbrother named Anand Maharaj.
Thank you. Prabhuji, you very interestingly talked about fish a lot. So
Yes.
specifically a question of fish. There are many traditions and belief systems, or maybe scientifically proven, I don't know. There is a fine line, they say there's a difference between fish and the meat traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
And even the state from where Prabhupada
Bengal.
belongs to, Bengal,
Yeah.
specifically the Brahmins there, I think the fish is exempt there. It's
They
not
eat a lot
part
of
of
fish.
meat and all. Even some Brahmins,
Yeah.
they are okay with fish.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Ganga Fall.
Yeah, and the other thing is, in addition to that, like medically, fish is the only thing where it has some proven, they say the medically proven value, like it has omega-3 fatty acids, good for good cholesterol, things like
Yeah.
that. And that's
Yeah.
why it comes up in form of lot of like pills and medications and all those things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
oil and but nothing else.
Yeah.
Not like cow's meat and this thing
Yeah.
they put in something.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Yeah.
So what do I
So-
think about that?
So the question is like, why? Some people say vegetarian, some say vegetarian, or meat. So is there
Yeah.
a difference between? Like,
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Good question. Yeah, the mind is very tricky, and the mind tries to justify things. In other words, things that we kind of know to be not so good. The mind justifies. Because the mind, the materially surcharged mind, is actually quite indiscriminate. And if we allow our materially surcharged mind to, if we give it full authority in our lives, that's why there's prisons. People end up in prisons. They listen to their minds too much. You hear some really sick, weird things on the news, which, by the way, I don't follow, but, people who do follow, they tell me. It's just like completely insane. The person's mind says, oh, it's their crazy mind, or it's their insane, surcharged, materially conditioned mind. It says to do something really stupid, and they do it. They kill somebody, they kill their children or whatever. It's like really terrible. So Prabhupada was asked one time, and I heard something recently, but I don't want to say it here. It's really, I'm not going to say it, but about somebody's mind and them listening to their mind and doing something really stupid. He's in prison now for practically life. But Prabhupada said that the difference between the mind and the intelligence is that the mind will say, when you're on a 5-story building, the mind will say, jump. And the intelligence will say, no. And when you have, with intelligence and order, we'll say no. So the intelligence is supposed to help us discriminate, actually. What's good, what's bad, what's good for me spiritually. So what I'm saying is that the mind, the materially surcharged mind, gives all types of rationalization why certain things are okay. But in fact, they're just not. Okay, Hindus, there's a principle, just don't eat cows, right? It's a principle. Now, if someone wants to be a Hindu and they eat cows and they're not a Hindu, or they're completely just fallen Hindu, that's just accepted. I think it's still accepted in India today. Who knows, But sometimes there's an idea that, we could eat other things, fish, chicken, so many things, But the thing is, it's still living. It's still breathing, it's still living, it's still a living organism. It's still Krishna's, we didn't give life, so we can't take it. We didn't give life, so we can't take it. In other words, it's just not, it's not nice. whatever the animal is. Even an ant, a Vaishnava won't kill an ant. What to speak of a fish or anything else? The Vaishnava avoids an ant. You could say, oh, it's small, it's in my way, smash it. Like I saw somebody one time. It's like, it was a spider. I don't know, I think they thought it was poisonous, but I don't think it was a poisonous spider. It was a regular spider. And then the person, there's foot, smashing. Again, imagine you're walking on a sidewalk and all of a sudden you see this big boot come down and just, smash you right here on Grand Avenue, Very unpleasant. So, if we cause pain to others, we have to experience pain. It's just the law of karma. And it doesn't matter, ant, anything. There's a story of Mrgari, the hunter. So Mrgari, he was a cruel hunter, actually. It was his profession. He would kill animals for food. And specifically, he would half kill them. He would, shoot with arrow, and then he would let them die slowly. So then Narada Muni came one day, great sage Narada Muni, and he said, hey, Bubba, you know that if you kill animals, that you're going to have to suffer karmic reactions. He wasn't killing cows, killing all the goats, chicken. He's killing any of the animal he saw in the forest, killing. He said, you're going to have to suffer. Are you ready for that? And the man said, well, I don't know, I'm doing this to kind of, maintain my family and, the mind and giving rationalization, different reasons. And then Narada Muni said, he said, just give it up. And the hunter said, okay, fine. And he broke his bow, broke it in half. And then he gave it up. So then he started chanting Hare Krishna. He started engaging in the process of devotional service. And then Narada Muni came back like a month later or whatever with his friend Augusta Muni, right? They came back. And then the same hunter, he walked up to pay his obeisances to Narada Muni, bowed down and everything. But before he saw his guru coming, there were all these ants there. So he started going like this with his chadar, moving them very gently, not to kill them, but to move them. Moving them very gently. And then he offered his obeisances to his guru. And then Augusta Muni said, just see, this man was a hunter, killing animals slowly, letting them die. She said, just see, now he became a great Vaishnava and he won't even kill an ant. So there may be health benefits. There may be health benefits to this, that, so many things, but we have to weigh that out. There's also, if we accept there's a principle of karma, we may not accept that, but if we accept that there's karma, then that's something to consider. And again, there's health benefits to everything practically. The whole fruit kingdom, the whole vegetable kingdom, the whole bean kingdom. I don't know if anyone's ever said that before, but bean kingdom. The whole bean kingdom, whatever. There's like an avocado, for example, that you look it up. Oh, it's very good for your liver, and it helps cleanse your liver. And what else does it do? Anyways, I heard about this. Or whatever, you look up magnesium, right? Which is found in the avocado. Yeah, there you go. Magnesium, which is found in avocado. It helps relax your muscles, actually. So there's health benefits to everything. So if someone wants to say, well, I need health benefits from fish oil or fish or whatever, but you could get those same benefits from other sources, and you could spare that fish, his or her little fish life, even though it may not seem so important to us, maybe, right? Swimming in the ocean there and being a fish, but it is a living organism. It does cause pain, So yeah, Vaishnavas don't do that. Now there's other Brahmins or priests who do that, as we were discussing, in different religions, and also different Hindu priests, you could say. Like I went to Calcutta, right? And I have a friend there in Calcutta, and Mayapur is close by, and there's a temple there, right? Many temples, and outside the temple, right there on the street. Like imagine our temple. Anyways, don't imagine, but right in front of the temple, before you walk in, they have it's like a guillotine, guillotine. And, during festival days and everything, they bring a goat there and, So now, and they have all these kind of ideas that Kali or Durga accepts meat. But interesting enough, Srila Prabhupada says in a purport, a very interesting thing. He says, all of these followers of Durga, they're worshiping Durga, right? The personification of material energy. Parvati, Durga, right? Kali. So they're worshiping her, and they're offering meat to her. And they're thinking that, okay, she gets the meat, right? And then we take that, and that's prasad. We're getting the mercy of Durga here. Now, Prabhupada makes a point in a purport. He says that actually what happens, this is what he says happens. He says that people, followers of Kali or Durga, they offer meat to Durga, and Durga doesn't accept it. And you know why she doesn't accept it? Now we're talking about traditional Vedic principles, Vedic life and standards. The wife only accepts what the husband accepts. And she actually eats after him. It's, traditionally Vedic, this is the system. So now who's the wife or who's the husband of Durga? Lord Shiva. And who is Shiva? Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Lord Shiva is the topmost Vaishnav. He's not violent. He doesn't eat animals. So Prabhupada says that these people, they offer meat to Kali. She doesn't accept it because she only accepts what Shiva accepts. Shiva's a vegetarian. So who accepts it? Durga's followers, the ghosts and the goblins and all these beings. They accept it. And these people, they think, yes, I'm getting Durga Prasad, Pashandi Prasad. They're getting, I think it's Pashandi. Is that how you say ghost? Anyways, ghost or goblin, these lower creatures, they're actually eating their remnants. It's interesting, actually. So, but anyways, but Vaishnav, strict Vaishnav speaking, devotees of Krishna, devotees of Radha Krishna, devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they don't eat any of these types of things. And, like Srila Prabhupada, he said, I never touched any of that. He was from Bengal. He said, I never touched any of that because his family was a Vaishnavs. So although he said I had ample opportunity to, he said I never did. Now, of course, in Bengal, I don't know if anybody's from Bengal here, but it is possible to be a strict vegetarian in Bengal. But my friend from Bengal, Kolkata, he's a lawyer there. I go to his house every time I go to India. He's nice. He's a devotee. But anyways, he said that when he became a devotee, means ISKCON follower, his friends and family were just shocked. Oh my God, how can you give up meat? It's like so it is very common in there. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's guru, he was also from Bengal, Vaishnava family. He never touched it either. But he would say to his brahmacharis and his followers, he would say, oh, if all of you aren't having this particular doll, I forgot what it was, Urad doll or something, I forgot what type of doll it is. He said, I could understand if all of you aren't eating this particular doll, he said, you're secretly having fish. Apparently this doll has a, whatever, I don't know, replacement or something. But so anyway, sorry, it's a little bit of a drawn out thing, but I hope that kind of touches on that. Yeah. All right. Yes.
I just add briefly that they researched the omegas, and it's actually the reason fish are filled with it is because they eat algae, and so you can now get all of the omegas you need just from algae. So the whole fish thing was a lie to begin with.
Interesting.
And so if you can just put that in the search engine and find out, that's the newest research.
Algae.
On that.
I guess they have that.
Which is a plant. Ultimately. So everything we need we can get from plants, because it boils right down to that. And another thing about fish is they actually feel more pain than any other animal because they have these little dots of sensory things that they use to find their way through the water. So when you catch a fish and take it out of the water, they actually feel more pain than a mammal or other land animal feels. So it's especially cruel to kill fish.
Yeah. Thank you. It's interesting. What do they have? What is that called? It's like dried sheets of, what do they call that? Seaweed sheets. Yeah. Okay, that's what, I can't believe I couldn't remember that. Seaweed sheets, you know. I had some friends who used to have those. Gunagai Swami and others. They would have those, you know, seaweed. They like those for whatever, health or, you know. So yeah, whether you get it through seaweed sheets or it's of the ocean, right? Better eat seaweed sheets. Okay, Miss, you had something, Dan? No? Okay. Does anybody have any other last comment or question about any of this? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.